'Cause no ordinary father will come home after 3 a.m. that is. So
welcome back. Okay, yeah.
I have a touch of orange.
Yeah, I noticed.
And I can see yours too.
Yeah, mine was there. You noticed that I went to go and get yours. You just had to do.
Okay, but I have mine.
Oh, yeah, good to know. Anyway, so we have a touch of orange in us. Not just because we love the color orange. Orange is, I mean, it's popping. It speaks
Bright,
of life.
you know.
But there's something that's going on. It's got about 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, why 16 days, you may ask? These number of days specifically set aside in November are used as organizing strategy by individuals and organizations around the world to call for the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. And these days, some people have added against men as well. This year's global campaign, this year's global campaign theme is Leave No One Behind, End the Violence Against Women and Girls. Well, I understand it's gone on for about 16 years now. So
don't worry, we'll hear more.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, to help us look at this, we have Mr. Paul Arkwright, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And Ms. Laurie Beaufils, Deputy British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, and I see that you have plenty of orange.
Absolutely.
Okay, so...
And my tie, of course.
Yeah, of course, your tie is orange. Okay, so, Mr. Arkwright, I'm not going to start with you. As we say, ladies first.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Laurie, it's been on for 16 years. I know that this year is about leaving no one behind, but let's take a few steps back and look at what's been achieved in the past 16 years.
So I think the 16 days are really about raising awareness, so people start recognizing that the issue of violence against women and girls is prevalent across the world. It's an issue that we have to discuss as a society. And the 16 years have been about just that, raising that awareness, the fact that we're able to talk about it, the fact that we recognize it's a human rights issue. Indeed, the 16 days of activism ends on the 10th of December, which is International Human Rights Day. So it's about making this an issue that is not just a women's issue, but very much a societal issue and indeed a political issue. And we've seen that. And it's about breaking the silence, or silencing the silence, as we say, to make sure that we are able to talk about these issues and that women are able to speak up when they have been the victims of violence in a way that they don't necessarily feel shame and stigma. And so I think we have seen progress because we are able to talk about these issues much more freely than was the case 16 years ago, when there was much more shame and where these issues of violence were discussed behind closed doors, if at all. And indeed, domestic violence has risen on the agenda as a very important issue that was not spoken about many years ago.
Mr. Arkwright, today happens to be the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And this conversation, how important, I mean, Ms. Laurie's talked about the fact that 16 years ago we couldn't talk about it, but we're talking about it now freely, and everybody can actually say, okay, these are those areas that we need to highlight and see how quickly action can be taken against it. But really, let's look at the importance of this conversation.
Well, there are probably few conversations that are more important. Prevalence of violence in society is huge. The prevalence of violence against women and girls in particular is very worrying across the world, as Law was saying. But here in Nigeria, it is a particular problem. A third of your female viewers today, statistically, will have been affected by violence in some way or another. A lot of that is domestic violence. A lot of that is violence from people within the family, people that they know. And I think it is time to speak out. It is time to say this has to stop. And it's really important that men say that as well as women. So this isn't a, quote, women's issue. This is an issue about society, because the perpetrators of violence against women and girls are almost by definition men, not always, but 95% will be men. And that's something that I think men need to recognise. Men need to stand up and say this has got to stop. So it's a really important debate. It's a difficult debate. It cuts across boundaries of culture, of ethnic groups, etc. But it's a debate which is really got to be brought out into the open and discussed properly. And then society, government at all levels has to take action to stop it.
Some people may be more comfortable with gender-based violence, just so it can accommodate both male and female. But girls and women you are focused on. Do you have anything in store, for the men? Like, just this week we had the case of an alleged murder of a man by his wife.
Well, clearly any violence perpetrated by anybody, whether that's a man or a woman, needs to be condemned. And certainly the purpose of this campaign is not in any way to belittle the possibility of violence by women against men. So let's get that straight. But let's also get straight that if you look at the statistics, if you look at what is actually happening out there, it is women and girls who are far, far more affected by violence in the home than men. So yes, there has been a very high-profile case this week. It's right that this is an issue which should be discussed more broadly. But I think we really have to focus on where the main problem is. And the main problem, undoubtedly, is violence against women and girls.
So how can these girls and women, do they have that power to protect themselves from this violence?
Well, no, in one word. I think in a lot of cases, Laura has talked about the stigma. It's difficult to raise these issues. It's very difficult to report them. What happens once they're reported? Do the police take action against them? Do they take the allegations seriously? All of that is something that needs to be looked at. And I think underlying all of this is the importance of education. Nigeria has over 11 million children who've never been to school. In the north of the country, it's particularly bad. And education leads to empowerment. And empowerment means that women, girls and women do have more control over their lives and can be more confident in speaking out, reporting abuse and taking action themselves.
Ms. Laurie, this issue of what can be done to protect the women and girls, especially, let's look at what the government can do. I mean, we've seen you go around different parts of the country. Sometimes there was a particular way you went to Enugu to commission halfway home. It looks like it, yeah. But what can the government do? I mean, in terms of focused attention on this issue.
So there's a lot that can be done. The government has a role in education, as the High Commissioner just highlighted, and supporting in education where girls are as valued as boys from a very early age, where they are made to believe in themselves and to believe in their rights and their entitlements in the same way that boys are. There's a case for supporting the police and prosecutors so that they can apply the law. There's a case for